Pay close attention to what comes next, because it's going to sting in a way you haven't expected. There are individuals traversing this world at this very moment who possess no superior intellect compared to yours, who have accumulated no greater fortune than what you could potentially achieve, whose creative abilities don't eclipse your own capabilities. Yet somehow they maintain an extraordinary lead, staying perpetually ahead of the curve, while everyone surrounding them remains bewildered by the mechanism of their continuous triumphs. It's absolutely not coincidental. It's absolutely not determined by destiny or providence. It's absolutely not governed by random chance or fortune. They adhere to specific frameworks, and when they strategically apply, subscribe to dark psychology decoded to reinforce those methods. Quiet frameworks, ruthless psychological frameworks that remain entirely unknown to the vast majority of humanity. If you've ever sensed that others underrate your genuine capacities, if you've ever felt that your remarkable potential remains squandered or untapped, if you've ever questioned the mysterious reasons why certain individuals ascend to prominence while you seem anchored in your current position, then concentrate your attention here, because once you finish absorbing this material, your perception of influence, human nature, and your own capabilities will undergo a fundamental metamorphosis. Machiavelli grasped a profound principle that terrifies ordinary people. Dominance isn't distributed as a gift. Dominance gets seized. And those individuals who seize it, they demonstrate no hesitation. They don't solicit permission. They don't depend on wishful thinking. They deploy the psychological frameworks you're preparing to uncover. These particular 7 uncompromising frameworks represent the clandestine methodologies that maintain extraordinary individuals at the apex. They grant you the capability to determine results, mold human behavior, choreograph perception, and traverse existence with understated supremacy. Certain individuals will despise these frameworks. Certain will reject them categorically. Certain will fabricate excuses about being excessively principled or excessively virtuous to implement them. But consider this reality. These frameworks get deployed on them at this moment by supervisors, by rival competitors, by unfamiliar individuals, by every influential figure who truly comprehends the authentic mechanics of this dynamic. Presently, you transition from being the objective. Presently, you grasp how the dynamic actually functions. And the moment you comprehend these frameworks, you cannot erase this knowledge from your consciousness. Before we progress, I request that you inscribe this statement of commitment in the comments section. Authority originates within mental architecture. That functions as your statement of commitment because the instant your perspective shifts, everything undergoes transformation. Now, breathe deliberately. Prepare your consciousness, because the inaugural framework strikes with greater intensity than the remainder. Framework 1 pertains to orchestrating restricted alternatives. Govern the possibilities, not the determination itself. Should you genuinely desire to penetrate the essence of supremacy, commence from this position. This framework constitutes the fundamental principle underlying every masterfully executed, calculated approach. It operates without announcement, exhibits minimal visibility, and remains practically imperceptible until you recognize its prevalence everywhere you direct your vision. The majority of individuals misinterpret authority as implying enforcement. They conceptualize dominance as originating from coercion, coercive intimidation, persuasive argument, or aggressive assertion. Yet exceptionally brilliant individuals possess different comprehension. You need not impose compliance when you architect the context surrounding individuals. You need not restrict individuals. You constrain the alternatives available to them. This constitutes the mechanism. An astute authority figure never communicates. Execute precisely what I require. He articulates. These represent your possibilities. Comprehending that each alternative guides toward his predetermined destination. It conveys the sensation of self-determination. It presents the appearance of sovereignty, yet it originated from premeditated engineering. Visualize presenting an individual with 2 different mechanisms. They experience enhanced capability because they maintain the privilege of selection, yet both mechanisms unlock the identical entrance. That describes the mechanics of understated authority. Parental figures accomplish this with dependent children. Administrative figures accomplish this with subordinates. Retail corporations accomplish this with consumers, and powerful figures accomplish this with civilization broadly. If your objective involves achieving particular outcomes, refrain from inquiring, "Will you perform this responsibility?" Rather, pose the question differently. Would you prefer performing this responsibility at this moment or at a later time? Would we favor option X or alternative Y? Which interpretation resonates most with your preferences? Every trajectory culminates in the outcome you previously determined. This mechanism generates psychological reassurance. Individuals believe their participation carries weight. Individuals believe their perspective receives consideration. Individuals believe they maintain determination. Nonetheless, authentically, you established the boundaries. They merely selected the compartment. Machiavelli communicated, "The mechanism of dominating a determination rests upon controlling the possibilities." He recognized that humans oppose mandates, yet they rarely contest structured alternatives. This framework functions because psychological architecture abhors ambiguity. When a person furnishes a clear collection of possibilities, the dread dissolves. They select more expeditiously. They experience protection. Additionally, because they perform the selection, they don't oppose the consequence. Brilliant individuals implement this framework omnipresently. Within haggling, they present two arrangements, both advantageous to them. Within authority roles, they direct organizations via predetermined trajectories rather than unstructured conditions. Within disagreements, they supply opponents with alternatives that diminish their position regardless of their decision. The magnificence of this framework comprises its inconspicuousness. Zero aggression, zero confrontation, exclusively intelligent construction. Should you aspire to transcend others, discontinue attempting to dominate individuals directly. Dominate the terrain where they make determinations. Engineer the perspective. Coordinate the trajectory. Administer the substitutes. Permit them to determine autonomously, restricted exclusively to the cosmos you manufactured. Because, fundamentally, humans advocate for their determinations, regardless of whether the determination received orchestrated design. This indicates that the instant they select your possibility, they commit, they sustain it, they secure it. You accomplish obedience minus antagonism and allegiance minus coercion. This represents why brilliant individuals maintain their advantage. It's not resulting from harsh control. It's resulting from strategically constructing possibilities. Bear in mind this principle. The individual determining the possibilities dominates the consequence. Currently, I request you communicate this statement of commitment in the comment section. I coordinate the possibilities. Framework 2 encompasses mastering the craft of capitalizing on aspirations. Distribute the imaginative vision, not the factual reality. There exists a particular rationale explaining why history's most commanding personalities comprehended human imagination, superior to how they grasped human reasoning. Reasoning fails to ignite mass movements. Reasoning fails to manufacture devotion. Reasoning fails to manufacture sway. Yet imagination exercises dominion throughout consciousness. Individuals navigate existence impelled by longings, yearnings, fantasies, misconceptions, and aspirations they barely acknowledge internally. Each individual breathing possesses an undisclosed mental photograph of the individual they aspire toward becoming, the existence they fantasize about inhabiting, how they desire external observers perceiving them. And the brilliant individual grasps this reality. He doesn't resist authenticity. He embellishes it. He doesn't communicate factuality. He packages imagination. He doesn't market information. He markets sentiments because sentiments generate human action. Here's the component most individuals never assimilate. Individuals don't hunger for unvarnished authenticity. Individuals hunger for authenticity softened, refined, and reconstructed in methods providing optimism. Machiavelli articulated, individuals get propelled considerably more by manifestation compared to genuine substance, and millennia haven't modified this reality. Observe your surroundings. Marketing campaigns persuade you that you embody exclusivity. Political figures communicate visions of utopian societies. Internet personalities represent flawless lifestyles. Enterprises guarantee achievement without anguish. It's wholly imagination. Individuals consume it enthusiastically, not because they lack intelligence, yet because imagination furnishes emotional reprieve from an unbearable existence. It grants them departure. It permits them to experience significance. It permits them to conceptualize an enhanced rendition of their identity. The moment you comprehend this framework, you quit investing energy attempting to enlighten individuals. You quit supplying them with unfiltered reality. You quit endeavoring to represent the champion of truthfulness. Authenticity burdens consciousness. Imagination floats effortlessly, and whenever you grant individuals something floating, they adhere willingly. Here comprises how brilliant individuals capitalize on imagination. They recognize emotional deprivation. Certains individuels désirent prominence, certains désirent celebration, certain desire tranquility, certain desire exhilaration, certain desire affirmation, certain desire significance. Subsequently, they articulate specifically toward that deprivation, definitely not via complicated concepts, yet via vivid depictions. You'll triumph, you'll conquer, you'll break free, you'll metamorphose into your genuine potential. It doesn't matter whether the imagination contains components of reality or complete fiction. What carries importance comprises how it resonates emotionally. Imagination attracts individuals inward. Truthfulness repels individuals outward. That's the rationale that thinkers, administrators, commercial magnates, and imaginative contributors all employ this framework. They construct symbols, narratives, and mental photographs that trigger psychological response. Examine this concept. Individuals don't embrace the superior arrangement. Individuals embrace the superior narrative. Individuals don't hunger for authenticity. Individuals hunger for significance packaged in psychological content. The brilliant individual comprehends he doesn't need to falsify. He merely needs to accentuate the most motivating facet of authenticity. Imagination isn't dishonesty. It's psychological methodology. The instant you address individuals' yearnings, you bypass their psychological defenses. You bypass their skepticism. You bypass their analytical processing, and you communicate straight to their core emotional center. That constitutes sway. Bear in mind, civilization will perpetually select what generates pleasant sensations over what represents genuine substance. Currently, share this statement of commitment in the comment section. I communicate toward yearning. Framework 3 involves discovering each person's psychological lever. Locate their vulnerability. Each individual possesses a mechanism. You must identify it. If you hunger for genuine authority, discontinue monitoring their articulated statements and commence monitoring what generates their reaction. Because underneath each self-assured expression, each assertive declaration, each peaceful demeanor, each composed movement, there invariably rests a concealed activation mechanism. A terror, a disgrace, a longing, a self-doubt, a psychological wound, a desperate appetite, a susceptibility they defend with their complete persona. And the brilliant individual understands this. To sway somebody, you don't thrust them. You engage the appropriate mechanism. Psychological response doesn't happen arbitrarily. It perpetually derives from a psychological foundation. And the instant you discover that foundation, you possess authority no aggression can recreate. Machiavelli expressed, "To command additional individuals, one must comprehend what governs them." This embodies the center of this framework. You don't identify somebody's psychological lever by requesting information. You identify it via observation. Monitor which subjects make them guarded. Monitor which appreciation illuminates their countenance. Monitor which offense provokes fury. Monitor which quietness generates unease. Monitor their declarations of accomplishment. Monitor what they circumvent. Monitor what they panic regarding misplacing. Individuals communicate everything via their responses. Think about somebody who continuously tries demonstrating their resilience. Their psychological lever comprises vulnerability. Think about somebody preoccupied with accepting a claim. Their psychological lever comprises exclusion. Think about somebody requiring experiencing authority. Their psychological lever comprises perception of insignificance. Think about somebody who divulges excessively. Their psychological lever comprises disconnection. Think about somebody who demonstrates no psychological expression. Their psychological lever comprises emotional exposure. The brilliant individual doesn't condemn these vulnerabilities. He investigates them. Because the moment you recognize what somebody requires, you recognize how to navigate them and make absolutely certain everybody requires something. A sensation of meaningfulness, a perception of protection, a foundation of recognition, a guarantee of belonging, a visualization of accomplishment, a protection from terror. Comprehending this isn't control. It's proficiency in psychological science. Ineffective individuals engage mechanisms indiscriminately. Commanding individuals engage mechanisms intentionally. However, here comprises the component most individuals overlook. Psychological levers aren't exclusively destructive. Certain vulnerabilities emerge from aspiration. Aspiration for recognition, aspiration for protection, aspiration for celebration, aspiration for optimism. An individual's imagination can prove as influential as their terror. The brilliant individual assimilates both. And the instant you recognize the psychological mechanism, influence transforms into a simple task. You can soothe somebody instantaneously. You can encourage somebody via a solitary statement. You can eliminate hostility via a strategic response. You can coordinate determination minus direct enforcement. You maintain authority minus increasing your volume. This framework doesn't comprise viciousness. It comprises comprehension. You cannot grasp individuals until you comprehend what mobilizes them. Because the instant you recognize somebody's psychological pressure mechanism, you recognize their whole conduct, the reasons they choose, the reasons they flee, the reasons they oppose, the reasons they comply, the reasons they pursue, the reasons they crumble, the reasons they grasp. And once you recognize these behaviors, you maintain the imperceptible authority. Bear in mind this principle. Individuals can disguise their expressions, yet they cannot disguise their responses. Responses communicate genuineness. Share this statement of commitment in the comments section. I recognize individuals thoroughly. Framework 4 concentrates on embodying leadership through comportment and presence. Demonstrate yourself as someone of significance. The globe responds to you depending on how you relate to yourself. Dominance functions as a representation. Individuals don't exclusively respond to your activities. Individuals respond to your manner of manifesting throughout existence. When you demonstrate yourself as uncertain, diminished, hesitant, or questioning, that represents precisely what you'll encounter in reciprocation. When you demonstrate yourself as commanding, self-assured, and intentional, the globe will restructure itself to acknowledge this. The brilliant individual comprehends this principle. They recognize that perception becomes actuality. They recognize that mental architecture doesn't consistently scrutinize capabilities, educational background, or proficiency. It appraises vitality, physical, positioning, vocal characteristics, and individual magnetism. Machiavelli articulated, the individual desiring compliance must comprehend commanding. Yet commanding doesn't emerge from vocalization. It originates from the mechanisms via which you navigate existence. Envision a monarch entering an environment. He doesn't solicit consideration. He doesn't implore acceptance. He doesn't petition for admiration. He merely advances with unspoken command. His physical positioning, his composed silence, his observation, his velocity. Each component conveys an identical communication. I embody importance. I maintain governance. I resist interrogation. This comprises what brilliant individuals replicate in their personal circumstances. All conduct demonstrates intentional direction. All movement indicates worth. All quietude communicates authority. The mechanism proves uncomplicated. Acknowledge your significance initially, and civilization will mimic this. Advance through an environment as though you possess it. Communicate as somebody whose phrases carry gravity. Maintain quietude when additional people dialogue. They'll communicate themselves whilst you stay grounded. Demonstrating leadership via comportment isn't arrogance. It comprises calculated presence. It comprises defensive coding. It comprises a technique to establish interaction boundaries before any words get exchanged. The authentic authority resides in refinement. It's not concerning prominence. It's regarding creating individuals perceive your consequence minus exertion. Confidence distributes like contagion. Hesitation demonstrates obviously. Individuals persistently investigate additional people. They examine to identify vulnerabilities, instances of uncertainty, reluctance. The brilliant individual remains prepared. They perpetually sustain their protective layer in observable circumstances. They never contract underneath examination. They project consistency and resolve despite tumult. Demonstrating leadership restructures both external observations regarding you and your psychological perception of yourself. Psychological architecture demonstrates tremendous capability. The instant you internalize your inherent importance, civilization initiates mirroring this. The mechanism comprises consistency. Leadership doesn't comprise isolated instances. It comprises behaviors, recurring activities, and presence. All communication, all movement, all observations strengthens your identity. Bear in mind, if you don't acknowledge yourself with appreciation, for what rationale would additional people? Your psychological condition establishes the criterion. Your self-certainty coordinates conduct. Your individual magnetism functions as the unannounced regulation that individuals observe. Share this statement of commitment in the comments section. I command recognition. Framework 5 encompasses controlling the mechanics of opportunity. It's not concerning what you execute. It's regarding temporal execution. Opportunity comprises everything. There exists variation between executing accurately at an incorrect instance and executing inaccurately at an appropriate instance. One damages your sway. The additional multiplies it. Brilliant individuals recognize that execution exclusively doesn't generate authority. Opportunity comprises the imperceptible mechanism beneath each accomplishment. It distinguishes the masterful from the serendipitous, the unstoppable from the mediocre. Machiavelli articulated, the perceptive individual accomplishes immediately what the sluggish individual accomplishes ultimately. Yet, observe the subtlety. It's not exclusively quickness. It's specificity. It's computation. It's restraint enclosed in anticipation. It's comprehending the cadence of psychological conduct, the motion of happenings, the disposition of the instant. Opportunity encompasses observation. It encompasses distinguishing when the instant carries potential and when it carries destruction. It encompasses monitoring, concentrating, computing, and anticipating till all circumstances coordinate. Accelerating generates mistakes. Desperation diminishes benefit. The premature action gets wasted when circumstances lack favorability. The postponed action turns worthless when alternatives have concluded. The brilliant individual mimics a hunter. He observes the assemblage. He examines behavioral rhythms. He waits calmly till the precise instant the objective reveals exposure and subsequently engages. Restraint doesn't comprise stagnation. It comprises computed suspension. It comprises recognizing that the appropriate action at the inappropriate instant manifests more destructively than inactivity. Authority doesn't comprise continuous execution. It comprises consequential execution at the acceptable instant. Observe responses, observe tendencies, observe reluctance. The globe perpetually transmits readiness indicators. You merely require the capability to perceive them. A brilliant individual never compels opportunity. He orchestrates happenings to coordinate with his action. He influences consequences, not exclusively via his execution, yet via temporal execution. Bear in mind this principle. Individuals misjudge eagerness as self-assurance. Individuals misjudge reluctance as powerlessness. Yet the individual dominating opportunity comprehends precisely when the globe will shift toward his preference. He doesn't accelerate. He doesn't postpone. He merely anticipates till the specific instant that amplifies consequence. Opportunity stays imperceptible. It stays tranquil. It doesn't communicate its existence. Yet, it regulates everything. The equivalent action at differing intervals can generate triumph or catastrophe. The brilliant individual comprehends this framework more thoroughly compared to most. He doesn't exclusively execute. He anticipates, computes, subsequently executes with conviction. Your authority develops not exclusively via acceleration. yet via comprehending when to advance, when to stabilize, and when to engage. Regulate opportunity, and the globe conforms to your cadence. Share this statement of commitment in the comments section. I execute at the acceptable instant. Framework 6 encompasses dismissing what remains beyond your capacity for influence. Abstain from reacting. Abstain from expending psychological resources. Composure represents authority. Among the most detrimental activities an individual can undertake involves battling circumstances beyond their capacity for influence. The majority of individuals deplete decades, psychological reserves, and emotional vitality responding to matters outside their capacity for direction. They contest. They communicate complaints. They preoccupy themselves. They permit external instability to devour them. Additionally, via executing this, they relinquish authority willingly. The brilliant individual comprehends a fundamental principle. You lack capacity to coordinate additional individuals, yet you maintain capacity to coordinate yourself. Your reaction constitutes your authority exclusively. Your consciousness, your determinations, your stability. These represent your maximum instruments. Machiavelli expressed, the individual desiring acceptance must initially govern himself. Examine the globe. Individuals provoke. Individuals orchestrate. Individuals examine restrictions. Individuals attempt recruiting you toward tumult, irritation, or psychological reactions. Yet the brilliant individual recognizes that involvement means surrender. Composure doesn't comprise weakness. It comprises calculation, dismissing insults, declining engagement, declining to become manipulated. These demonstrate proficiency marks. The instant you terminate reacting, instability misses its capability over you. The instant you terminate pursuing recognition or acceptance, manipulators misplace their advantage. This framework concerns management of psychological reserves. All reaction consumes capability, cognitive focus, and mental clarity. All psychological expression furnishes additional individuals' capability over you, yet restraint converts your existence into something impenetrable. The brilliant individual addresses provocation similar to a performance viewed from perspective. They examine, they focus, they gather information, yet they never relinquish their psychological center. They recognize that the commotion exterior doesn't coordinate the harmony interior. Authority emerges from the capability to stay unharmed via mechanisms exterior your domain. The instant you regulate this framework, individuals understand you remain unreachable. Attempts toward orchestration, provocation, or intimidation fail. They vocalize, menace, and pressure, yet you remain unbothered. Conceptualize this framework as protective equipment. All instances, you dismiss what remains beyond your authority. You protect your capabilities. All instances, you respond unnecessarily. You diminish yourself. All instances, you maintain quietude confronted with provocation. You construct alarm and acknowledgement. Bear in mind, the globe will perpetually transmit instability toward you. It will endeavor to sidetrack, irritate, and destabilize. Those individuals who respond get constrained. Those individuals who govern themselves transcend. Somebody communicates criticism toward you. Don't articulate response. Somebody disseminates false narratives. Don't pursue them. Somebody endeavors recruiting you toward commotion. Withdraw. The brilliant individual transforms into comparable to fluid, adaptable, persistent, unstoppable. You don't battle currents. You shift direction. You don't pursue turbulence. You pause for calmness. Let them communicate futilely, whilst you stay unaffected. Let them deplete capability whilst you construct sway. Let them respond whilst you maintain unshakable presence. Share this statement of commitment in the comments section. Tranquility comprises my capability. Framework 7 encompasses engineering extraordinary displays. Manufacture exhibition. Generate emotional response, not analytical processing. Information vanishes. Communication gets disregarded. Reasoning faces opposition, but spectacle embeds itself permanently within psychological architecture. It commandeers concentration, restructures comprehension, transforms into recollection. Brilliant individuals recognize that people operate via emotion initially, reasoning secondarily. People correspond to what they observe, listen to, and experience emotionally, not what they receive as transmission. People embrace what seizes their psychological focus. They maintain recollection regarding what startles, stimulates, or astounds them. Spectacle doesn't comprise mere theatrical presentation. It comprises orchestrated communication, calculated engineering. It's the methodology of affecting comprehension while permitting individuals to imagine they developed conclusions independently. Examine Chronicle. Napoleon's ceremonial presentation encouraged military forces. Caesar's ceremonial marches captivated Rome. Contemporary administrators and commercial enterprises comprehend this mechanism. Visual representation can supersede factuality. Spectacle operates successfully because consciousness craves stories and representations. An uncomplicated transmission becomes overlooked. A vivid representation, an unanticipated performance, or a commanding custom generates amazement. It commandeers consideration, stimulates psychological response, circumvents cognitive examination. The brilliant individual implements spectacle in numerous approaches. Throughout administration, observable ceremonies manufacture allegiance. Throughout negotiation, calculated movements interact dominance minus confrontation. Throughout community sway, orchestrated exhibitions of capability necessitate consideration and obedience. Spectacle similarly disguises strategy. Whilst observers experience amazement, the brilliant individual advances tranquilly behind observations. The assemblage witnesses exclusively magnificence. The arrangement stays imperceptible. Remember, reasoning persuades consciousness. Spectacle seizes consciousness. An emotional response perpetually triumphs. Engineer instances that demonstrate greater magnitude compared to existence. Instances individuals will communicate regarding, acknowledge, and correlate regarding you. Instances generating emotion, not examination. This comprises sway at its most fundamental. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're tools, psychological instruments that restructure how the world perceives you and how you perceive yourself. Every moment you understand these frameworks is a moment you gain advantage. Every moment you hesitate, someone else advances. The world doesn't reward contemplation. It rewards execution. It honors those who demonstrate capability through behavior, presence, and strategic movement. People dwelling in confusion remain subordinate. Those in authority grasp the mechanisms. The difference isn't intelligence, it's understanding. And understanding is available to anyone prepared to observe, internalize, and implement. Start with orchestrating alternatives. Notice when your environment restricts choices. Engineer your atmosphere to benefit you. Structure conversations with alternatives, not mandates. Present possibilities where every path serves your objectives. This isn't manipulation, it's intelligence through structure. Capitalize on imaginative aspirations. Transform your communication from information to narrative. People don't retain data, they maintain stories. They don't follow logic, they follow feelings. Become an architect of emotional response. Understand individual psychological mechanisms. Monitor reactions, hesitations, enthusiasms, silences. These communicate more than words. They reveal the foundation motivating conduct. Demonstrate authority through comportment. Your physical positioning, vocal characteristics, temporal response. These coordinate messages before any articulation. Elevated positioning, deliberate movements, consistent speech, purposeful pauses generate extraordinary modification in how civilization relates to you. These frameworks demand practice, intention, commitment to repeated implementation. Commence modest. Practice. Observe consequences. Refine. The brilliant individuals you observe implemented these repeatedly until they transformed into second nature. That capability remains available for you. The exclusive inquiry. Do you possess the courage to implement them? The world rewards action, not understanding. It rewards achievers. This represents your opportunity, your instant, your selection. Commence today. Execute deliberately, consistently, courageously. Command your fate.